Hello, everyone, and welcome to the UNX News Radio podcast, your news source for all things unexplained. And now, here's your host for the UNX News podcast, Margie Kay.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to UNX News. We're here every Friday, and I am your host, Margie Kay. I'd like to welcome you to this special edition of UNX News because we're going to do something a little bit different this evening. I'm going to give you a very short introduction to remote viewing, and then I will answer your questions. So you would want to go to the live chat and get in the queue, and each person may ask one question. Just give me your first name and your city and state, or if you're out of the country, some way that I can locate you and tune into you. Don't put in your last name, though. So, first of all, I would like to let you know about a few really great conferences that are coming up. Now, of course, we have the XCon that's coming up in May. That is a 2-day event. We have really good speakers on 2 full days. But on Friday night, this is going to include a bonus live remote paranormal investigation at a really, really haunted site. So that's a 3-hour investigation from 9 p.m. to midnight for those of you who are night owls. So be sure to sign up. Registration is open right now at unxnetwork.com. Then I want to tell you a little bit about the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference, April 22nd to 23rd. I will be speaking at that one, and there are a lot of good speakers, mostly having to do with Bigfoot, if you're interested in that subject. And I assure you, this is going to be a really great time. And that website is nebraskabigfootmuseum.com. And you'll also be able to tour the museum while you're there. Now, this is brand new. This is something that has been a long time coming. Strange Tales Midwest Conference on the Unknown, and that is August 5th to 6th, 2022 in Cape Girardeau. And some of you may know about that area, which is the site of the famous 1941 UFO crash. So I'm sure somebody is going to be talking about that. And then we also have the Arkansas Paranormal Expo in October in Little Rock, Arkansas. So be sure to check that out. That's got a little bit of everything going on there. And Race and I will be there. So this evening, I'm going to get started with a very, very short introduction to remote viewing. This is, just a few minutes long. It is nothing like what I do for my classes, but this will give you an idea. And then we will do some light, quick readings after I'm done. So let me see if I can share my screen here and choose which one. Okay, and then if this doesn't work, Race will be sure to let me know. So far, using remote viewing, I've helped solve over 60 missing person, homicide, and large theft cases for law enforcement, private investigators, and others using remote viewing. I've also done hundreds of private readings, including demonstrations to large audiences with amazing results. And believe me, I'm as surprised as everybody else is in the audience, but it works. So a lot of people ask where I got this ability. And I believe that it is part DNA, in other words, genetic, coming from my family, and also partly assistance from, some extraterrestrials. And that is a big story for another time. But I assure you, This has been very, very strange, but they did give me the ability to do some things that are pretty amazing, such as X-ray vision, seen through a body or an object. So what is remote viewing? It's a method used to see scenes, people, or objects in other locations by using the mind. According to Wikipedia, remote viewing is the ability to gather information about a distant or unseen target using paranormal means, extrasensory perception, or sensing with mind. And I would probably want to take out the term paranormal means out of that sentence, because really it is something that is biological and it is real, and it is not something woo-woo. In fact, it is so real that the U.S. government has a program. They were looking for psychic spies to combat Russia's psychic spies. So this was in the 1970s, but later remote viewing was popularized in the 1990s following the declassification of documents related to the Stargate project, which was a $20 million research program sponsored by the U.S. federal government to determine any potential military application of psychic phenomena. The program was supposedly terminated in 1995, citing a lack of documented evidence that the program had any value to the intelligence community. However, we know that that actually did continue. In the mid-70s, government support for the growing remote viewing program moved from the CIA to the Defense Intelligence Agency, as well as certain other military organizations. So you can assume that these other military organizations have their own programs going on. Subsequent experiments and research explored the edges of what remote viewing could do and tried to improve quality and consistency of the results. Since 1995, a number of persons previously associated with the remote viewing projects have gone public, and several have written books on the subject, and you can just look those up. You'll find them instantly on Google. CRV, or controlled remote viewing, uses geographic coordinates of a target location. Hal Puthoff and Ingo Swann worked out this structured approach to remote viewing, which was used for the last 11 years of the government program. This method was used to train military personnel and civilians to remote view. It does require the assistance of at least one other person. Now, one thing to note here is that Hal and Ingo both said that anyone can learn how to do this. However, people who have psychic abilities, are predisposed to having psychic abilities, will have an easier time of learning it. However, I discovered remote viewing accidentally while working on a missing persons case in 1990, long before I heard about the government program. And just very quickly, this involved a missing 14-year-old girl. A client of mine that I had been doing readings for some time contacted me about her niece who was missing. And she had not come home from the bus stop that afternoon. By the time she called me, it was about 7 p.m., and the family was in a panic. By remote viewing, while I was speaking to the woman on the phone, I simply asked the question, how am I going to do this? And I saw a line extend out of my solar plexus, and so I followed it. And this line brought me right to an intersection. So I saw two street names at this intersection, and I asked the woman if that was indeed the place where her bus stop was, or, anything that she knew about. She goes, yes, that is exactly her bus stop. So I then followed the line 2 houses down from the bus stop. I saw a golden glow around the property, so I knew I was in the right place. I looked at the address and gave that to the woman. She says, oh my gosh, we were already there earlier in the day with the police asking questions. And they simply had gone to the door and asked questions of a 30-something-year-old woman who had made friends with this 14-year-old girl at the bus stop. And they thought it was very odd that an older woman like that would befriend a 14-year-old. So that is actually the first place they went to inquire. And they didn't go in the house. They didn't do a search, and they left. Well, while I'm remote viewing, I suddenly am rising up above this house, followed the line to the backyard to a shed. And then I'm lowered down and I'm looking through the shed. I see the girl lying on the ground, asleep, apparently drugged, and she had duct tape on her mouth, and her hands and feet were bound. But she was okay. I knew she was alive. So I told my client this, and she says, I'm going to call that detective right now, and I'm going back over to that house. So she called me later, and that's exactly what she did. She called the detective. He says, I wish you would not go back there. And she said, I don't care. I'm going back there anyway. I just know something's wrong. Of course, she didn't tell him how she knew this. And so he says, okay, I'm not going to let you go by yourself. So he went with her. They went back to the shed. They found a girl. They went inside the house. They found 2 men and a woman who admitted that they had kidnapped the girl and they were going to sell her the next morning. She was going out of the country. So, of course, she was very thankful that I helped her, and I learned a new tool. I realized then how important remote viewing could be, and I continued then to use this with other things. And pretty soon the word spread, and I started working with law enforcement on other cases, homicides, theft cases, and missing person cases, which I still do today. I found that this could be done while fully awake or in a very light trance state without any assistance from someone else. So I just stumbled on this, and I found out that I could do it myself. Now, one thing about remote viewing is that you do go into a light trance state. So after the session is over, I may not remember anything later on. So I have to immediately write down, or I have to record that session. Or if I have somebody else in the room that I'm doing the session for, or on the phone, or sometimes on Zoom, there will be a recording of it. But after that, it will just leave my mind. Remote viewing can be used to visit a location without leaving home, to view a past event and look in the past. So it's a form of time travel. It can be very helpful for UFO and paranormal investigators, and I use it a lot for that. You actually do have the ability to slow time down if needed while remote viewing, and I found this out not too long ago, that I could do that by simply asking time to slow down. And it actually works, and it slows it down by a few seconds anyway. I start all my UFO and paranormal remote viewing sessions from far away and then gradually move closer to the site because I want to observe what happened, but I don't want to become a part of the situation. And I'll tell you something kind of funny that happened when I was remote viewing a potential UFO abduction scenario. I found myself on a craft, and I found the person in question was on a table across the room, and there were ETs standing around her, and one of them had his back to me. I wasn't in that room, but a few seconds when he turned around and looked directly at me in my eyes, and then looked for a minute like he was looking straight through me, reading me, and then he went back to what he was doing. So he knew I was there, and this was a past event, so I time traveled to this past event, looked at something that happened, and I was physically there in some fashion, which I believe is the astral body, and he was not affected by that. He didn't have any fear about it. It didn't bother him that I was in the room. So I decided to get out of there very quickly. And now I don't do that too often, but if I do, I'm very cautious about it. You can also view past events such as thefts, and I've done a number of theft cases, including some very, very big theft rings that are in the Midwest, and they were going around stealing and watching people's homes. And then when they would leave for work, they would bring in a big truck that would look like a moving van, unload every single thing out of their house, and take off. And the neighbors would just think that they were moving. So that one, wow, that turned into a much bigger deal than I thought it would. And there were multiple arrests in that case over 2 states. And like I said earlier, locating missing persons can actually find the source of health problems in humans or pets by remote viewing. And it doesn't matter if the person's right in front of you or if they're, thousands of miles away. A remote viewer can look at that person and inside the person to see where problems might be. And in some cases, there have been some very difficult health issues that doctors were unable to diagnose, but I went in and I found the location of it. I may not always know what I'm looking at because I don't have any experience as a professional health practitioner of any type, but sometimes that helps people locate where the problem is. I've also been able to locate the source of vehicle or machinery issues, and my husband and I own a contracting company. We have several trucks and vans, and every once in a while something goes kerflooey with one of them. And in some cases, the auto repair shop has not been able to locate where the problem was, but I have been able to do it by remote viewing on numerous occasions. It has also helped my husband in the field. He might be in the field working on something, and he'll call and ask me where he should drill to avoid a gas line or something like that. And it has, turned out to be very helpful. So just basically steps to remote viewing. If you're doing a target method with an assistant, and this is similar to the government program, you want to reach a light hypnotic state either by yourself or with the assistance of someone else. And in some cases, they train to go into a deep hypnotic state. And that will involve someone else being in the room, giving triggers like a number or holding an envelope, and then asking the person to remote view and then tell what they saw. With natural remote viewing, which is what I do, the psychic center of the body is in the center of the forehead. And this includes the pituitary gland, the thalamus, the pineal gland. All of these are what I call the psychic center. And if you take a look at the Eye of Horus, and then take a look at a brain that has been sliced in half, oh boy, you realize what the ancients knew, because that is the Eye of Horus. And that central area, especially the pineal gland, and by the way, it's called that because it looks like a pine cone. When all of these things are functioning correctly, this is where really good psychic work is available to you. And of course, remote viewing is part of that psychic center. When you are in that light trance state and ready to remote view, you should feel a slight tingling sensation in the third eye area. The remote viewer will send or project his consciousness to the remote location from the third eye. So this is going out the forehead to the location or the solar plexus. Now, I always talk about protection because you may want to carry a quartz crystal with you because quartz repels negative energy. So I always have either something around my neck or have something in my pocket that is a clear quartz crystal in order to repel that. And then I'll also do a meditation beforehand to bring in white light energy for protection. Also, when doing psychic or remote viewing work, you want to make sure you're not in a bad mood because this can definitely hinder your work and pull in negative energies, which can result in false readings. So I do not do this type of work unless I am in a really good mood and feeling good. So here are just a few remote viewing skills help ideas. You want to practice meditation daily. I suggest, 10 minutes a day at the same time of day, and practice using your sixth sense daily in some fashion, either dowsing or trying to see something at a distance or doing a reading for someone. You want to do it every single day, even if it might involve something at your work. Now, there are a few things not to do, and so this is what I call remote viewing ethics. I do not spy on people. I don't remote view adults without their permission, except in the case of a missing person. I always ask permission, even for family, but remote viewing children are okay. That is okay if doing it for the parents, because the children are the parents' responsibility. I also never, ever go to a secret, secure location because trackers do know you're there. You want to meditate 10 minutes a day at the same time. It doesn't matter what the subject is. You can meditate on anything. That's just helping to activate the psychic center. I like to practice dowsing. This exercises the pineal gland. You can use a pendulum or dowsing rods, either way. Practice that often. You want to spend time communing with nature, because believe it or not, that's probably the number one thing that will get you grounded, and also communing. When I say communing with nature, I mean really the communing with the consciousness of living things, trees, flowers, plants, etc., water, and all the living creatures that go with it. Now, I do have some remote viewing workshops that are going to be starting up again this spring, and they are going to be on demand. I have the book, the Remote Viewing Workbook, and of course a newsletter, which is free to anyone who wants to join at my website at margiekay.com. Now, let me see if I can get out of that and stop sharing. There we go. Okay. Now, going to ask Race to read any questions or comments that might be in the chat. And once again, if you have a question, just go ahead and drop that into the chat, and make sure I have your first name, your location, and your question.
Our first question, Margie, was, how long have you worked with law enforcement, and has it been a successful experience for you?
I've been working with law enforcement since about 1993, and it has been very successful. I've helped solve over 60 cases, and in a couple of cases I was not able to help. And the reason was that there was no evidence left behind. So in all of the other cases, there was evidence, and they were able to locate what they needed to find. Unfortunately, in most missing persons cases, it is too late for me to help find a person that is not already deceased. So I ask people, don't wait. Call me immediately. Get in touch with me immediately in the case of a missing person. And you can call my phone number that's on the website, or send me an email or a text, and I will reply as soon as possible.
Okay. Scroll here, scroll. Okay. The next question is, have you ever worked with any other remote viewers such as Lynn Buchanan or Paul Smith?
I have not worked with them, but I have worked with people who have taken my courses, and some were just really naturally good, and then they got better after they took my course. And so we have now a group that works on cases together. So if I have a big case come in, I will give the details and then ask everybody to separately see what they see and write it down and then send it to me. And a lot of times we're seeing the same thing. So that tells me we're definitely on track with something. And it works. It just surprises me sometimes how well it works.
Wow. Well, this question about well, actually it's more of a comment about how amazing it is that you have the ability to see health issues in people in the human body, because they've apparently, according to them, they've never heard of that in remote viewing. But I can attest to this firsthand. I saw Margie do this in person at actually it was an event that we did in Arkansas. It was a mock UFO landing case investigation training course, and one of our staffers in the group that we were in had a husband that was like super skeptical. This guy was, you know, even though his wife believes in UFOs and all this stuff, he's one of those husbands that kind of just indulge her, and he doesn't really, he's not really buying it, but
Mhm.
and I think she drags him along to a lot of these things just for punishment.
Yeah.
But man, when Margie scanned him, I'm here to tell you, I think if I remember right, he had a tilted stomach, and he had just been diagnosed with that like 3 weeks prior. And Margie, she said, "You look good. Everything's good with you except you've got a tilted stomach. Were you aware of that?" And he looked at his wife, and she looked at him grinning. She looked, her smile looked like a Cadillac grill. Like she was just, I mean, lit up. And I looked at Margie, and Margie looked at me, and we just kind of grinned. And I was impressed. I was there. But he did acknowledge that, yeah, he did have a tilted stomach, and that's not like a common health issue and a lot of people that you
No.
hear about anyway. And for Margie, and then he got engaged. He started asking questions and this and that. Come to find out, they had just bought a house, and they were in the country. Margie remote viewed it from right there underneath that pavilion that we were in, about 30 miles away, give or take as the crow flies. Margie remote viewed it and nailed the description of this house and the property right down to the artesian well in the back, the barns, how many barns it had, rooms, the whole thing. But it's just, I want to make the comment really quickly as Margie's friend and program director of her business and someone who's a bit skeptical about this at one time themselves. Margie, she's the one who made a believer out of me. And I have other stories like, where she diagnosed issues that I had with audio in the studio when I was starting another radio station 10 years ago, upon which Margie was the first show that I ever aired on that station, on Next News. But I was having a terrible buzz in my audio coming through my headphones. I couldn't figure it out. And long story short, Margie remote viewed it on the phone with me. She said, "Race, this, and this. Look for this." I did. Bam, there it was. Problem solved. And right there on the phone with her, I literally just had to unplug one thing, and the buzz went away. It was literally spine tingling. When something like that happens, you just can't avoid it. I mean, it's not like, it's sort of like you're just a deer in the headlights. You're just kind of stuck there looking at it and wondering how that just happened. A bit like when people find themselves, maybe surviving a car wreck or something, and then they turn around and they look back and they're just like, how did I just make it through that? It's that kind of a awe-inspiring moment. But when it comes to scanning the human body for health issues, how did you figure out you could do that? That was essentially their comment and the question.
Well, that one That one I was actually told that and given that ability by an extraterrestrial by the name of Valiant Thor. And I am going to be talking about that at the Bigfoot conference. That's my subject. And it's the first time I've really gone public with this. But the event occurred in 1985, where he appeared to me, and in this very strange fashion with lights, it activated something in my brain and woke it up. And then he said, "Now you have X-ray vision," and he left. So it was up to me then to figure out what this X-ray vision meant. And it literally meant being able to see through objects and in machinery and people. So to me, it used to be when I would scan a person, do a reading for them, I might see a red area near something that might be inflamed. Okay, when I still do see that, but I look further, and now I'm able to look at it just like I'm inside the body looking at it. It is a video to me. It's a picture. Wow. And I'm physically in there and I can see it. So, and the details, and then also I can even ask to look microscopically at the blood. And I've seen some amazing things inside people's blood. I've seen sickle cell anemia with the misshapen blood cells. I've seen diabetes, seen what that looks like. And I always tell people I am not giving any health advice. I am simply giving you an idea, and then you go to your doctor to get this taken care of and scope it out. But it's just the fact the Valiant Thor gave me that ability. So there you go.
And what is
my strangeness for sure.
Yeah.
I see a question from Drew. He asked, "Do you see me at any in-person conferences this year?" And yes, I see you at 2 conferences this year. So I would keep an eye out for that. Now, they're going to have to do with spiritual things. So, I would stay very open-minded about that and keep in touch with some people. There is something about the color blue around you and having to do with a conference that has a color blue around it. So I would definitely look for that. And what else have we got, Race?
This one was interesting from Brian. I've recently just opened my mind to meditation. I'm learning about the pineal gland. I've watched quite a bit of stuff on Gaia about this. I've tried, but it seems that I'm not really able to get results. Just seeking information on meditation. I'm seeking to heal my mind and body and my soul.
As we all are, Brian. I would suggest that you practice doing meditation for 10 minutes a day, and I'll give you a way to cheat to help you go deeper into meditation, and that is using music. Music will completely change your mood and gets into your mind and will make your brain react to the music using a certain beats per minute. And the actual vibration of the music will put you into a meditative state. So try that out.
That's interesting. Margie, this is a question for me real quick, because we've got some more we've got to get to.
Okay.
But I have talked to you about this before, but could you explain to the listeners and the viewers a little bit about the success rates of remote viewing? Because we're talking about remote viewing today, but you are a psychic without any question or equivocation. You have proven to be just that. And I've often described it. Those of us who don't understand what that is and don't know what that is, just learning about what that is, I guess the best way I can put it is those with that gift, or those who have honed those skills from an early age, are waiting on all of us to catch up. But to sort of describe the success rates of, sort of how you observe or dissect or view or feel these answers to these questions that people put to you, it's a lot sort of like an athlete. I've always that's how I've kind of visioned it is, Michael Jordan didn't have a great game every week.
Right.
He had good games. He was on some games. He was off some games,
Right.
Tiger Woods, he has good games. He has bad games. I sort of kind of accompany that alongside the psychic gift and maybe the remote viewing aspect of things too. Is that a good sort of analogy for it?
It is, except that if I need it and I call on it, I can do it, even if I'm sick. It's just there, and it's difficult to explain, but it's really about vibration and frequency and being tuned into that right frequency, just like a radio station. You would turn to a channel, of course, it would be the Onyx Network. You tune to that, you get something back. You hear the sound or you hear the music. Okay. I'm tuning into the frequency of that person, what they're giving off, their channel. And that's what I'm reading. That's the best way that I can describe that. So and it really is a fact that anybody can learn how to do that, because everyone has a frequency and everybody has the ability when they open up their psychic center. They maybe just need a little training, like going through my workshops, reading my book or other people's books, or taking meditation classes somewhere. That's the trigger for getting this going. And the other thing is that a person has to practice. It's just like being a musician. The more you practice, the better you get. So I use it every day, whether it's just at my contracting work, or if it's a reading for someone, or if it's trying to decide if I should start a new network. That's what I use it for. The ideas will come and the answers will come.
Fantastic. Angela has this question that I've posted on the screen from St. Joseph, Missouri. What do my guides say? What I need to do to open my gifts back up? It seems I've backtracked. What do you think, Margie?
Okay, let me turn into Angela here for just a second. There is something to do with a backyard. Now, this could be your backyard or a family member's backyard where you need to go. And I believe this is a place where you have been before and you used to go outside and do meditation or gardening. There's some kind of activity that's going on, and you need to get back to that. And I also see two trees forming an arch shape, and that is a special place. That's like a sacred place that's got really good energy. If you will seek that out and sit underneath those trees, that will help a lot. Now it says, okay, yeah, well, if you've backtracked, that simply means that you're not practicing enough and just not using it enough. And practicing doing something every day, something fun, like maybe dowsing, or using tarot cards or runes, something like that. That will help you a lot.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks for that question, Angela. Got another one from Ain, and this is really good. How did you find out which method works best for you? Because CRV and ERV are natural. RV are all quite different.
Well, I think the name is Ain. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Natural RV is the only method that I have ever done, and I have not learned the other methods. Now, I'm open to learning them. Maybe someday I will try that. It's like the quantum telepathic communication technique that I use with UFOs. I communicate with UFOs, call them in, and they appear. And that I've done this number of times with a lot of people present. Somebody else has created CE5 method. So this is just a different method. It's probably something similar. I don't know because I haven't done the CE5 yet, but I'm planning on it. I think that these ideas are out there in the Akashic Record, and some of us pick up on it and some of us act on it. And then if all of us were to talk and get together about these remote viewing methods, I'll bet there will be a lot of things we have in common. Okay.
All right.
What else?
That was a
Have
good
we
question.
got?
Fuzzy wants to know, when is your next workshop and how do I join it?
Well, I am working on the workshop right now. It is going to be on demand. So you'll be able to just sign up and take each course, each part of the course, which would be a class, separately. And right now, I'm planning on probably about 12 to 16 classes that'll be involved in the course. And I will have that information out in the next couple of months, because it's a lot of work to put this together, but I need to get it finished, because in the past, what I've done is live workshops, and it's 8 hours a day over 2 days, and it's just too much for me. It's too much for everybody else involved. So I think that's going to be the way to do it. And then at the end, after you've taken the course, then we'll have a one-on-one session on Zoom. So that's how that's going to work. Just sign up at my website, margiekay.com, for my newsletter, and you'll see the announcements. Okay.
Whew. Margie, does it take from you physically when you have to work with remote viewing?
It does a little bit, but frankly,
I mean, aside from 8-hour marathon teaching courses.
Yeah, no, I don't do those anymore. I just can't do that. That's a physical thing. It's a mental thing using remote viewing. And yes, if I do it a lot, it's tiring. But honestly, most of the time, like say, if I do a private reading for someone, I'm done in 20 minutes. Okay, everything important will come in very, very quickly in most cases. So, but I'll spend 30 minutes with the person. I used to spend an hour, but we don't need that much time. It's simply a fact. If somebody has several questions lined up, I'll be able to go through them very, very quickly. Once I tune into that person's frequency, it's done. And so, I can do 2 or 3 of those a day, and I do them on the weekends. I don't do them during the week because I'm just extremely busy with running 2 businesses. And but on the weekends, that's when I'll do it, Saturday and Sunday. So,
well, that's it for the questions at this time that I have on my end. But I think, Margie, what would be interesting for me, and I'm hoping for everybody watching and listening, is maybe for you to give us an example, maybe one of your better stories of how you find remote viewing rewarding and some of the successes that you've had, maybe something really interesting.
Sure. I think one of my very first remote viewing sessions after that first one I told you about was a case where this woman's husband was killed, and everything he owned, all of the cash he had, and other things, she wasn't able to find. They were lost. And so she asked me to take a look and see if I could find these things for her, because she had nothing. And she didn't even have enough money to pay for his funeral. So I took a look and I said, oh, your husband, his frequency was at a nightclub. And I said, is there a reason why your husband is at a nightclub? And she goes, yeah, he owned one. And I said, okay, so I'm in the right place. I said, you need to go to the second floor. There's an office there. And on the floor, there's a hidden safe. And this is the combination to the safe. She called me the next day and she could not believe. She had no idea that her husband had anything in the floor, much less a safe in that office. It was so concealed, you couldn't tell. And I gave her the right combination. She opened it up and there was thousands and, a couple $100,000 in that safe. And, that just saved her. I mean, she had nothing. He had left her with no life insurance or anything. And so to me that was a big deal. That was a good one.
A pretty big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you could locate a couple of $100,000 legally. That's yours. That's always a good day.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That was a good deal. I've also found lost wills that people couldn't find, paperwork that people left behind when they passed and they didn't tell the family members, and just located objects, wedding rings. Oh my gosh. There's several wedding ring stories, but I'll tell you one real quick. This was a person who his wife lost her wedding ring and she was all upset. And he said, can you please help me find that thing for her? And I instantly saw the house and I drew a diagram of the house and where the bedroom was. And I handed it to him and he says, yeah, that's exactly right. That's where everything is. I said, okay, look underneath the bed in something black and the wedding ring is in there. He ran home, went right underneath the bed, pulled out a black sack that she had recently packed some sweaters in. The ring had got caught on the sweater and was in the sack. So, I mean, that one even floored me. I was just not expecting to see that.
Because it's something that's happened to us all. I know that Robin has lost her wedding ring at least 2 or 3 times, doing just that. Just a mundane task, normal thing that we do every day. And she's located it by accident. We didn't have any gifts to find it, but she's like, honey, I found my ring. I'll be in here doing something or somewhere, doing my thing. And I'll hear her scream out, I found my ring. But it happens all the time. And that's so amazing, Margie. That's always a happy ending, isn't it?
And I'm glad you brought that up because here's the deal. When you're in a panic about something, you cannot find it. Okay. I cannot find something if I'm in a panic about it. You have to calm down.
Right under your nose.
Get out your dowsing rods and just follow the energy of the rods to the thing that you have in your mind to find something. That's the best advice that I can give you.
What Dan Terry does. I produce his show every Friday night, and he talks a lot about those dowsing rods.
Oh yeah, they will. Oh, they work in paranormal. I love using them in paranormal work myself, but I like to use them to find things. And then we've got another comment here. She wonders if Val Thor is still alive, and the answer is definitely yes. He is still alive. He is a created being and pretty much immortal as far as I can tell. And he just kind of stays around the age of 35 all the time.
Is he from Venus?
Yes, he's from the interior of Venus. At least that's what he says. I actually tried to remote view him, and I see him coming from further away first, but closer to this time now, that's where he was. But he's been on this planet for quite some time, a long, long time. So
he said I should have called her on my wedding day when I lost my license.
That's a bad day to lose your license. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's not a great time to lose one's license, Margie.
No. Hopefully, hopefully she found it. So,
My goodness gracious. Mm, mm, mm. Oh my goodness.
wow.
All right. Well, I am just, as I always am, just tremendously interested in how this works and how one can latch a hold of it and run with it, because every instructor, everybody that teaches this, and I've talked to Russell Targ, and like I said earlier, I gave a name, Paul Smith, out there in Utah. He's been an instructor. Lynn Buchanan, I've talked to at great length about it. He was an instructor for many, many, many years. There's just a common consensus that everybody has the ability to do this, that everybody sort of has that tuning fork in their brain, that all they've got to do is learn how to switch it on and start using it.
We all have the same physiology in our brains. We have the same parts. And if the parts get awakened, that's when good stuff happens. Now, there is one thing, though. There's kind of a conspiracy about this. So here we go with a conspiracy theory. There are some people who think that the powers that be do not want people to have these abilities. And so they wanted to shut down the pineal gland. Well, there's a few things that do shut it down that make it calcify. And the biggest thing is fluoride that calcifies the pineal gland.
I remember they used to put that in the water here.
Yes, they did. And they put it in everybody's water. And they certainly had it in Kansas City when I was growing up as a kid. And that's why it's important to quit using fluoride toothpaste and fluoride mouthwash and everything fluoride, and don't have that fluoride treatment that the dentist wants to push on you. I just stay away from that, because that is calcifying the pineal gland. And if you look on YouTube and just type that in, calcified pineal gland, you'll find a couple of really good videos on this by other people. And they actually show pictures of real pineal glands that have been calcified, and then healthy pineal glands. So that's a major, major part of waking up and being able to use remote viewing and your psychic center.
Mike, we've got a couple of more posts from Fuzzy. He must have, or they must have missed your response to when is your next workshop. So you might want to address that one again. And then
okay,
they said
next workshop is coming this spring. Just sign up. Contact me through my website at margiekay.com. I'll get you on my newsletter mailing list. And, I think it's going to be a couple of months, maybe 3 months when it's available, and it will be on demand. So you'll be able to do a webinar on demand and take classes as you want at your own pace. And then at some point, I will be doing an in-person, like an ending course with everybody that's involved. And if you'd like to be a member, we have the Margie Kay's Third Eye Club. If you are a remote viewer and you would like, and you take my course, then you're welcome to join that club and help me work on cases. So, if things come up, it can be a paranormal case, it could be a UFO case, it could be a missing person or an unsolved homicide or unsolved thefts, things like that. If you're interested in working on that, you can pick and choose what you want to work on, and maybe help us out with that. So it's a lot of fun, and it's those of us who are involved in it. It never ceases to amaze us how many things we get that are exactly the same as the other person. So one of the things we do is draw something. If we go to a location, we'll make a drawing, and maybe there's a fence post, and maybe there's a well, and there might be tall grass, and then we come back and everybody has drawn that. So And it's good practice too. It helps keep everybody involved in practice and ready to go for the next time. And
I'm afraid to learn any more good skills. I got enough people needing me for my truck and moving stuff and muscles and lifting stuff.
Well, that's the other thing. You do have to have time to devote to this a little bit, at least 10 minutes a day.
Right.
And if you don't have that, you don't have it, and a lot of people just don't have an interest in it. It doesn't suit them. So fine. Those of us who do, we'll do it. But this is this is my deal. So I'm going to keep doing it.
Well, you're good at it. So the world is a better place if you do, for sure. I'll preach that from the highest mountaintop. Again, everybody, margiekay.com, because that's where you're going to get all your information. There's a lot of stuff to be gleaned from what she does, and a lot of her talents are there to be utilized. So for what it's worth, margiekay.com, folks, get over there and take a look, see.
Okay. Are we out of time for this evening, Race?
We go ahead and get this last question in. We've got.
Okay. Let me try to tune in to Pat here to find this picture for her that she has been looking for 10 years. Any idea where it is? Okay. There's something pink involved, and that may be in the picture itself. And I'm seeing a gold frame. So either that is the picture or it is near that object. So it would be something that I think looks like it's about maybe 18 inches wide, this frame. And then there's pink in the painting. I think it's flowers. And I see some other colors in there too. And I would also look behind that object as well. And since we're almost out of time, Pat, I will also work on this for you. If I get anything else, I will let you know. I'll send you an email because I know what that is.
All right.
Thanks for your question. Thanks for everybody for tuning in this evening. And thank you, Race, for co-hosting this evening at the last minute.
Well, I always enjoy doing shows with you, Margie. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And we'll see everybody here again next week, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern.
You've been listening to the UNX News Podcast with Margie Kay. Any rebroadcast or duplication of this program or its content without express written permission from UNX Media or Margie Kay herself is strictly prohibited. The UNX News Podcast, in direct cooperation with the internet website unxmedia.com.